Our planet teems with countless animal species, an exact number beyond our reach. These creatures share the Earth with us, equally claiming it as their home. But imagine a scenario where they vanish or face extinction. How would this transform our world, and what implications would it have for humanity? All these questions are explored in this video. Today, I'm going to explore the consequences of a world without animals. Join me. Insects. If insects were the first to disappear, what would people do in that case? Of course, they'd be happy because they'd no longer have to swat away mosquitoes, run from vicious wasps and hornets, and be afraid of being bitten by a tick in the woods. The world would forget the existence of malaria, dengue fever, and other dangerous diseases carried by insects. Agricultural workers would breathe a sigh of relief since they'd no longer have to fight Colorado potato beetles and locusts. Even dogs and cats, which are no longer bothered by fleas, would find peace, but the consequences would overtake humanity very soon. Insects, for all their small size and pesky nature, are among the most important inhabitants of the Earth because they form food chains in a huge number of habitats and also directly affect plants. Bees, wasps, butterflies, flies, and beetles are the main workers in pollinating plants. About 80% of the world's plants are flowering plants. Consequently, to produce, they need to move pollen from the anther of the stamen to the stigma of the pistil. Sometimes wind, water, birds, and bats can do this, but insects do the lion's share of the work, and no one can replace them. So soon after the extinction of insects, most plants will die. In addition, animals that eat insects will soon starve. Pretty soon they'll all die, and after them, the animals that eat them will die, and so on up the chain. Only the scavengers will remain, but they too will soon run out of food and become extinct. The situation now. Currently, scientists know more than 1.5 million species of animals. Scientists have described more than 1.3 million arthropods, which are the most common animals in the world. They've also described more than 115,000 species of mollusks and more than 40,000 vertebrates. These figures are quite large, but scientists believe that this is not the limit. Take, for example, the world's oceans. They are very poorly studied. While scientists have conducted a lot of research at shallow depths, we can't even talk about great depths. The situation of the deepest places on our planet being poorly studied is evident by the fact that there have been more people on the moon than at a depth of more than 7 to 8 kilometers. It's possible that scientists will still discover many deep-sea inhabitants and terrestrial ones as well. The discovery and description of new species continue all the time. Nevertheless, with all the success of scientists, the situation is not comforting. At this moment, the world is experiencing another era of extinction, which has lasted for several millennia. During this time, many animals, including the famous mammoths, saber-toothed cats, dodo birds, and other animals, have already disappeared, and the situation is only getting worse. Swedish scientists estimate that by the end of this century, more than 500 species of mammals will have completely disappeared from the face of the Earth. Many other animals will also become extinct because human activity and climate change are ruthless. It's probably impossible to exterminate absolutely all animals. But let's imagine that it did happen, or at least, let's imagine that animals began to die out and disappear on their own for unknown reasons. What would happen then? Large animal and birds. Because large animals and birds will become extinct, there will be no one to produce biological fertilizers. Because of this, the Earth will no longer be fertile enough and plant populations will shrink to an even smaller scale. Due to the absence of fish and other underwater inhabitants, the flora and seas, rivers, and lakes will not receive enough nutrients, which in turn will almost completely destroy all aquatic plant species. Humans. While all of this is going on, humanity will already understand the seriousness of the mass extinction of animals. Over time, people will not be able to eat meat and fish because there will simply be no such products. You can, of course, go vegetarian, but don't forget that the vast majority of plant species will also die and disappear. The diet will be incredibly scarce, leading to mass starvation as well as the spread of many diseases that would not exist with a meat or normal plant-based diet. The mass extinction of animals will not lead humanity to rule over the planet. Humanity is likely to become extinct too, disappearing after the animals, but there are options to avoid it. Future. In the first scenario, most of the people on the planet would die, and the rest would have to urgently change their diet. In the absence of other living organisms, the planet would take on a completely different, desolate appearance. Most of all, the fertility of the Earth would suffer. Plus, the Earth would suffer from the lack of crops. Edible plants would be extremely scarce, and humans would eat mostly corn and fir cones. Minerals would be used to maintain the vitamin balance. It's unknown whether humanity would be able to reconstruct its diet and get used to the new circumstances, but even if it could, the Earth would not do without lots of victims. The world would change forever. There's a second option, which is more futuristic. It involves the artificial cultivation of meat in test tubes, as well as the creation of artificial plants. Such technologies already exist. For example, in 2013, the Mosa Meat Company produced the world's first burger from meat grown entirely in laboratory conditions. Since then, the company has improved production techniques and now grows better and cheaper synthetic meat. Many investors see a future in this company and other companies like it, and they're already investing actively. But even if humanity were able to switch to synthetic products, it would not do without losses. The production of synthetic food on a planetary scale is still out of the question, so most people would still suffer from hunger. So, whichever way you look at it, either humanity would disappear along with all the animals, or most of the people on the planet would die, and the rest would have to learn to live in a new world with a meager diet or fake products. As you can see, all the animals, from the smallest insects to the largest predators, are not just our neighbors on Earth, but also something without which we'd be in a very bad situation. After all, everything in this world is interconnected. All in all, a world without animals is a real hell. I hope we never have to go through something like that. By the way, what about us? I think it's clear how the Earth without animals would look like, but what would it look like without us? What if all the animals stayed, but all the people disappeared? How would the planet be transformed in this case? Stay tuned, we'll look at that scenario now. First few days. So there are no more people. No people means no fuel, so power plants around the world will stop working pretty quickly. The lights will go out all over the world, and the water pumps in the subways, which maintain the groundwater level, will lose power. So the underground tunnels will flood quickly, but that's just the beginning. 10 days after the maintenance outage, more than 400 nuclear reactors around the world will go out of emergency mode, and without cooling mechanisms working, they will begin to melt and then explode in many places around the world. The consequences will be comparable to Chernobyl. First few months. Humanity has been gone for months, so natural disasters will begin to destroy cities. Fires will rapidly destroy wooden structures. Within the next few decades, there will be none left on Earth. Those that do not burn will rot. The lack of heating will cause the rooms to freeze, and as a result, many domestic animals will die out. First few years. People have been gone for years. Moss will gradually take over the deserted roads. Plants will break through cracks in the stone and concrete, and the gradually spreading root system will damage the foundations, and some of the block and stone houses will collapse. Glass and metal structures will be the first to suffer. By the way, the former will crack and burst, and the latter will rust and deteriorate over time. The strongest structures will be the stone ones, and they're likely to stand for centuries before they're finally swept away by the wind or carried away by the current of the new rivers. After 10 years, methane from the water-filled underground tunnels will begin to escape to the surface and penetrate into the buildings. From time to time, this methane will explode, causing enormous damage to structures that are already failing. Dams around the world will collapse, leading to catastrophic floods. First few decades. People have been gone for 20 to 30 years, and concrete structures, under the influence of plants, cold, and wind, will begin to deteriorate. High-rise structures will gradually disappear from the urban landscape, including the most famous ones, for example, the Eiffel Tower and the Empire State Building, and they'll collapse in about 150 years after humans have disappeared. Having lost power, the Earth's satellites will fall to Earth. Some will burn up in the atmosphere, and others will crash into the Earth, causing numerous fires. Although carbon dioxide emissions will cease with the disappearance of humans, the global temperature will rise by 1 more degree Celsius within 40 years. At the same time, the Earth's ecosystem will already begin to recover. Centuries after the disappearance of humans, the northern hemisphere will begin to cool down, and cities will be buried under layers of snow. Animals will return to the exclusion zones around the exploded nuclear reactors. By this time, All plastic bags will decompose, vegetation will cover the entire globe as it did 10,000 years ago, and the last materials not decomposed will be radioactive waste, pottery, and bronze. And what about the animals? What will happen to them? Scientists believe that in the absence of humans, they'll take over the world. It's possible that even insects will become a big part of the new ecosystem. Domestic animals will have to survive because they'll have to find their own food. Some of them will die, and some will run wild. These cities will be overrun with animals. Lions, bears, and other large animals will go wherever they want because people and electric fences will no longer be able to stop them. In time, the face of the earth will change completely. Of course, some animals will go extinct, but many surviving animals will become the rightful kings of the planet, and nothing and no one will stop them. That's all, guys. What would you do if you were the last person on Earth? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.